Hey everybody, this is First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich, rocking the last day of my vacation beard, which will be shaved off today as I head back into work after a long holiday off. But the good news is, if you love winter weather, we've got plenty to talk about because the pattern's going to get really active here starting to end of this week into the new year. Let's get right to the short term first, because if you're a skier, this is great news for areas of the southeast going into the upcoming weekend, because we've got a couple systems heading our way. The first system you can actually see on the map here, low pressure in the plains. This will be moving east. Now, this is initially going to be rain ahead of it, but there's cold air coming down with this front, which will basically produce our first bona fide northwest flow snow event of the season. What that means is we're going to see air coming off the Great Lakes, really cold air that's going to pick up some moisture and deposit snow on the western facing slopes of the Appalachians. So we're going to see some really good snow, it looks like, for the ski resorts starting Thursday night through early Saturday, and maybe even a little bit more for New Year's Day. So New Year's weekend right now looking pretty good. And let me show you how this unfolds. This is our GFS model, or the NAM model. I'm going to start with this first to kind of show you how these systems develop. You can see us initially starting as rain moving into the southeast. So here comes that batch of moisture tomorrow. And again, this really starts to pick up moisture starting tomorrow afternoon. We could see a little bit of a wintry mix in parts of West Virginia and Virginia, but in North Carolina, this is probably going to start as rain and then change to snow sometime late in the day on Thursday as the northwest flow. Now, the NAM model, not really good at picking up this northwest flow, but I'll tell you, this moisture coming off the Great Lakes is going to come down here and start producing snow. So the model not picking it up well, the GFS a little bit better at picking it up. You kind of see the flow. And the reason that this is a really good setup is you've got low pressure over the northeast. So you've got a trough of low pressure, you got the front there, and look at this flow. You see the isobars lining up off the Great Lakes? This is how the cold air comes across the lakes and then moves down into the mountains on the western facing slopes, and you end up getting some snow. So this is going into Friday, and you can see the setup for snow is pretty good in the mountains, especially Friday morning into even Friday afternoon, and possibly all the way into early on Saturday before it begins to taper off. How much snow are we talking about? Well, it depends on the location. This is one of those things about northwest flow snow. You typically got to be on the western facing slopes, but you can see the setup here. Pretty good amount of snow up in West Virginia. I think we're looking at a good 4 to maybe 8 inches up here. And then down in North Carolina, I'd say 1 to 4. And that's a pretty big spread because I think you will see a wild swing from some of the lower elevations to the higher elevations. You can see the Tennessee line will be favored. I'll switch back and forth between the NAM here, and we'll go all the way out just to kind of show you. And this is with melting, by the way, between the GFS and the NAM. So you could see the difference. There's subtle difference, but you're talking Grandfather Mountain, Roan Mountain, Beach, Sugar Mountain, all the way up to Mount Rogers, and then down in the Smokies, probably 1, maybe outside 2 inches. Here you're probably talking 2 to maybe 3, but some of these mountaintops will be around 4 inches. So the potential's there that we're going to see our first legitimate northwest flow event. And then as we go into the new year, this is when things will start to get interesting because you're starting to see some of the hints of this. And I'll go out just a little bit. I'm going to put the temperatures on here. Cold air is going to start building back up here in Canada. We are going to see a warm-up after this weekend. So going into early next week, we'll see a big warm-up. Now, the thing about warm-ups this time of year, you got to remember, before you get Arctic air to spill down, you typically get a big warm-up. And the reason that happens is the cold air pulls up here, it pushes down, and like a waterbed, the atmosphere kind of ebbs and flows. If you push down in the west, it forces warm air up ahead of it. So before the cold air can come in, you typically get a big warm up ahead of a big cool down. So let me back this up a little bit and kind of show you how this cold air starts to come in. You see the cold air building in the west, and this is looking at the 3rd. So January 3rd, we go into the 4th, and we'll start going. Look at the cold air, but notice the warm air that surges up ahead of it. So you see a big surge of warm air, but the cold air is diving in on the back side. So the cold air is coming, folks, for the new year, but we are going to see a pretty good warm up after this weekend into early next week. You see the Arctic front right there. Now this is going into January 4th, the morning of January 4th. Look at that Arctic front. That's a pretty strong system. You got low pressure over the Great Lakes. There's your Arctic front. Big warm up ahead of it, but look at this cold air come funneling in on the backside. So the potential is there. We're going to see probably a pretty prolonged cold snap for the new year, but between now and then, snow and cold for the weekend, then a warm-up early next week, and by this time next week, keep an eye on this pattern. This is a cold and stormy pattern as we go into the new year, and right on schedule, we start to get into the heart of winter is when we start to see an active pattern. I'll be on today starting at 4, 5, 6 in NBC Charlotte. I'll be shaving the vacation beard, and I'll see you then. Hope you're having a great Wednesday.